one of the more controversial aspects of nutrition are artificial food additives. A lot of people worry about these additives because they think they could be detrimental to health. Artificial food additives are basically synthetic ingredients that are added to food to enhance its color or flavor or extend its shelf life or improve in some way. The safety of artificial food additives is determined by the Food and Drug Administration, that ensures that all food additives on the market are safe. They're classified as either Group 1 or Group 2. Group 2 is also called generally recognized as safe. These are substances that have been tested and found to not cause any adverse effects. The Group 1 are kind of like grandfathered substances that have been around so long that they're added to foods, but they're kind of in a gray area of safety. An example of that is the nitrates that are added to processed meats. There's some indication that nitrates are associated with gastrointestinal cancer. However, natural nitrates found in vegetables are for example, let's say beets, are converted into nitrite in the body, which in turn is converted into nitric oxide, which is actually a good thing since it protects your cardiovascular health, helps prevent high blood pressure and that type of thing. Food additives, again, though, are basically synthetic ingredients. They're not naturally derived, and they're added to the food to enhance its appearance or whatever. There's two types. One is called direct. These are direct food additives are added for a specific purpose such as changing the texture of the food, the binding, or the color. For example, a good example is aspartame, which is a popular artificial sweetener used to improve the taste of soda or low-calorie foods. Aspartame itself is mired in controversy. There's all kinds of conspiracy theories associated with aspartame, that it causes cancer, it causes brain tumors, all types of things. But when this is put to the test, most of these conspiracy theories fall apart. However, some people are sensitive to aspartame and maybe have some problems with like headaches. Aspartame itself is composed of just two amino acids, aspartic acid and phenylalanine. It has a little bit of methanol, which is basically also called wood alcohol. That could be toxic, and that's what a lot of these conspiracy theorists focus on. However, the amount of methanol in aspartame, you'd have to eat a ton of aspartame to get a toxic amount of methanol. There's more natural methanol found in a glass of fruit juice than there is in about 20 envelopes of aspartame. So, you have to look into the research. You can't believe this nonsensical conspiracy theory. The other kind of food additive is called indirect. These become part of the food. They can become incorporated in the food because of in trace amounts, because they're found in the packaging of the food, the storage, or the handling practices. There was a controversy a couple of years ago. A type of microwave popcorn contained a substance kind of in the lining of the package that turned out to be a pretty potent carcinogen, and scared the hell out of a lot of people. It was in some of the more popular brands of microwave popcorn. I think it was something called not TNT, but something like that. I can't remember the exact name, but because of that, most of the manufacturers of microwave popcorn have ceased to use this potential carcinogen. You have natural additives are derived from, let's say, natural sources. Red beets, for example, are used to produce a natural red food coloring. As a matter of fact, one of the side effects of drinking beet juice is that when you urinate, your urine could appear pink to reddish in color, which scares the hell out of a lot of people. But all it really is the pigment, the natural coloring pigment found in beets. It's completely harmless. But if you don't know what it is, it can, you think you're bleeding internally, it can scare you. They have natural red food coloring. Soybeans and corn are used to make lecithin, which is not only is it a type of natural emulsifier to help bind ingredients in food, but lecithin itself is one of the oldest natural supplements. Lecithin is a very good source of choline, which is very important for brain health. It's the precursor for the brain neurotransmitter acetylcholine. which is involved in intelligence and memory. Acetylcholine drops dramatically with brain degeneration diseases like Alzheimer's disease. And interestingly, the type of choline found in lecithin is one of the few types of choline that can get into your brain and actually help produce acetylcholine. Most other forms of choline cannot get through the brain barrier, the blood-brain barrier, I should say, so they don't really get into your brain in sufficient amounts, I should say. The only ones that do are lecithin, another form of choline called alpha-GPC, and the third one is called acetylcholine. All other forms of choline cannot enter the brain in sufficient amounts to affect brain health. Then you have artificial additives. They're not derived from nature. For example, most vanilla extracts, you would think that they're natural, but they're actually produced from a substance called vanillin that's produced in a lab. I'm probably going to have an article in my Applied Metabolics newsletter about some of the health effects of actual vanilla itself. Very few people know about how vanilla affects health, so I feel that I feel it deserves an article. It's a little bit too much to put in a video because I personally don't like super extended videos. I understand some of these podcasts go on for an hour and a half. Some of them are 3 hours. I personally can't speak for anyone else. I can't even imagine having the time to watch or listen to these stuff. And human attention span for videos has been shown to be 18 to 20 minutes, so that's another thing to take into account. But the truth is, both natural and artificial food additives, they have to meet strict regulatory and safety guidelines to be approved for use in food. Where are they found? Artificial food additives are found in a lot of popular foods, especially very often processed foods. They're found in yogurts, breads, salad dressings, sodas, baked goods, chips, protein bars, and again, other processed foods. Some foods on the grocery contain emulsifiers. Others may contain sweeteners or food colorings. The reason they're added to food again is because many of the food products contain emulsifiers, stabilize or thickeners to improve the quality of the product and the taste appeal. They help to bind ingredients such as soil and water that normally might be separated to produce a more uniform texture and appearance. A food may also have artificial additives to improve its nutritional composition. For example, synthetic ascorbic acid and folic acid, which is a B complex vitamin, are commonly added to foods because they're more stable than their natural counterparts. These are potent antioxidants which prevent the food and the nutrients contained in the food from becoming prematurely oxidized. What are the potential effects of eating artificial ingredients? A lot of it centers around gut health. The population of bacteria, fungi, and other organisms that reside in the colon is known collectively as the intestinal microbiome. I mean, the data or the studies on this are exploding. I mean, it's extremely important. It affects everything in your body from head to toe: protein absorption, carbohydrate absorption, whether you store calories or burn them. It affects everything. It even affects how serious a case of COVID-19 you'll get if you do happen to get infected with the virus. Now, a lot of people say that eating artificial additives adversely affects the gut microbiome because you have to have a certain balance of bacteria to get optimal function of the gut microbiome. And the thinking is that consuming artificial ingredients allows certain, let's say, negative organisms that reside in the microbiome to overpower the beneficial bacteria and other beneficial organisms. So, in other words, the thought is that eating artificial artificial additives can cause what they call dysbiosis, or an imbalance of organisms that reside in the microbiome, which is a very serious problem. But the truth is, there's very little evidence to show that artificial food additives that are approved by the FDA affect your gut health. The increase in gut disorders such as irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, and gut dysbiosis, which I just mentioned, has led many to wonder whether there is a connection between gut health and artificial additives. But there was some preliminary research fairly recently which kind of indicted certain artificial sweeteners as having a bad effect on gut bacteria diversity. which could lead to digestive issues. But the proof is very sketchy. It was shown in animal studies, and when they went and tried to replicate it in humans, they didn't find the same effect, which is, again, proving what I always say: animal studies are not always transferable to human studies. The human microbiome, quite frankly, greatly differs from the microbiome in animals, which explains why the artificial sweeteners, for example, adversely affected the gut microbiome of the animals rather than the humans. And a lot of these studies were not well controlled, and they used very high doses of artificial sweeteners. That's a problem with a lot of studies. Like in the animal studies, they'll give doses that are way higher than any human would possibly consume. And they expose the animals. And of course, there's an old saying in pharmacology: only the dose determines the poison. If you give a large enough dose of anything, it's going to become toxic. It's that simple. If you drink too much water at one time, you're going to dilute your brain neurotransmitters and your electrolytes, and you're going to be on the floor with convulsions from just drinking water. You can go on and on. Some mice studies have shown that one emulsifier that's sometimes added to foods called polysorbate 80, which, by the way, happens to be an ingredient in the COVID-19 vaccines also, and titanium dioxide, which I did a separate video on, it's a food coloring, they can lead to alterations in the gut microbiome diversity. But again, this involved mice, not humans. What the study showed was an increase in sulfate-reducing bacteria that could worsen irritable bowel syndrome symptoms in the mice. Again, no evidence, not a drop of evidence that this applies to humans. However, I know some people are a little bit paranoid about this. If you do suffer from some of these intestinal problems, Crohn's disease, irritable bowel syndrome, you might want to go a little bit easy on some of the some of the food additives, just to be safe, even though there's no evidence that they cause problems. And then another frequent criticism of these, let's say, artificial additives, such as artificial sweeteners, is that they can actually cause weight gain, which I always wondered about, because the artificial sweeteners like aspartame, they don't have hardly any calories, they have very little carbohydrate, they have no fat. So I say to myself, how could they possibly cause weight gain? But they do, of course, they sweeten the food. Examples of these include aspartame, aspartame K, saccharin, and sucralose. Now, if they have 0 calories, how could they possibly cause weight gain? Well, they think it can cause weight gain by altering the gut microbiome, leading to changes in metabolism of the way the body processes other nutrients like carbohydrates and fats, causing them to be stored as fat rather than burnt as energy. And also, the thought is that these artificial sweeteners can affect hormone regulation in such a way to promote body weight gain. But the problem with those ideas is that most artificial sweeteners don't get to the lower intestine where the gut microbiome exists. They're metabolized further up the gut. They never get to in other words, they don't get into the gut microbiome. So how could they change the gut microbiome? So you could throw that theory right out the window. They did one study that found no difference in gut bacteria when human humans consume either a normal amount of artificial sweeteners. They found no change at all. None. Additionally, some theorize that artificial sweeteners may not signal the release of hunger-regulating hormones in the same way as sugar, leading to increased hunger in food. They're talking about things like certain intestinal peptides that when you eat food, these are released and they tend to turn off the appetite. One of them is called ghrelin, which rises between meals. When you eat a meal, ghrelin shut off. It gradually rises between meals, and it's very, very potent appetite signal, makes you want to eat. It's nature's way of getting to eat. Some people think that artificial sweeteners, the body misconstrues them, and because they don't contain calories, somehow they don't stimulate these appetite suppressing hormones. But there's no evidence for that. This is, again, just theory. There's no evidence whatsoever. Speaking for myself, I don't use a lot of artificial sweeteners. I use some, for example, in my coffee. I've never noticed any increase in appetite whatsoever. I don't use a lot of them, but I don't notice any any change at all. A couple of cross-sectional human studies did show a dose-dependent association between artificial sweetener intake and body mass index, but other studies have shown just the opposite, that artificial sweeteners tend to promote, if anything, weight loss. A recent meta-analysis in the British Medical Journal showed no relationship between artificial sweetener consumption and body mass index, but they need more studies about that. Another criticism of food additives is that they are carcinogens. They can cause cancer. Of course, I remember a couple of years, well, not a couple, quite a while back, 2 particular artificial sweeteners were thought to cause cancer. One of them was saccharin. The other one's called cyclamate. The situation with after that they added a warning on saccharin that it could be a possible carcinogen. As far as cyclamate, that was actually removed from the market by the FDA. I don't believe it was ever returned to commercial use in the United States, but it's available in other countries like Canada, because what the study showed, as I said earlier, the amount of, let's say, saccharin and cyclamate that caused cancer in animals was massive. Massive. I mean, it was like a pound of saccharin. Who the hell is going to eat that much? There's no human on earth that would eat the amount or consume the amount of these artificial sweeteners and that were given to the animals and promoted cancer. And again, here we go back to hormesis, the principle of hormesis, which states certain substances are beneficial up to a point. If you get past that point, they reverse and they become negative. And that applies to everything, including any type of artificial sweetener. Another possible, culprit, if you want to call it that, in causing cancer, again, are nitrites and nitrates, which are used to preserve processed meats. Processed meats are crap anyway. Nobody should eat them, because while regular fresh red meat doesn't really have any relation to colon cancer, there is some indication that the processed meats, again related to the nitrite and nitrate content, could theoretically cause a gastrointestinal cancer. However, if you consume vitamin C or E with it, it completely short circuits the process that converts these things into carcinogens, because the actual carcinogen is called nitrosamine, and that's formed from amino acid byproducts called amines that combine with the nitrates, so you have nitrosamine. However, if you consume, let's say, processed meats, which contain nitrates as a preservative or coloring agent, if you happen to also include vitamin C and E with it, it inhibits the conversion of nitrates into nitrosamine. Nothing happens. Not only that, but nitrates and nitrates, they're now considered extremely healthy. People drink beet juice and eat certain vegetables that are high in natural nitrates because they're converted to nitric oxide. And there's no evidence at all that these things will cause cancer. None at all. There's one called bisphenol BPA, which is that's an additive commonly found in food packaging. It's also been linked to an increased risk of cancer and endocrine disruption. It can mess up thyroid hormone release and all that. Used to be in a lot of baby products, but it was banned. But it can still be found in some water bottles, cans, and other packaging. If you look at the bottom of the bottle, let's say a plastic bottle, there's a certain code. Can't tell you what it is offhand. I don't remember. You could look it up online, but it will tell you the type of material that's used in the plastic, and you will find that most of them, because of the controversy about bisphenol A, do not use BPA anymore because of this association, not so much with cancer, but because it is an endocrine disruptor. It can mess up your thyroid hormone release and all that. There's very limited research that directly connects other food additives to an increased risk of cancer. But it's true, however, if you consume a highly processed diet, all these TV dinners and kind of unnatural foods they sell it with all the loaded with food additives, they seem to have an increased cancer risk. But nobody really knows if it's caused by the food additives. It could be a combination of high sodium content, various other things. But a highly processed diet is unfortunately associated with an increased risk of cancer. Could be also because those foods lack certain protective nutrients that help protect you against cancer. The best way to protect against cancer is to avoid smoking, limit your alcohol consumption, maintain a healthy body weight, stay active, and eat a nutritious diet that's high in fiber, fruits and vegetables. Those are the foods that contain these natural anti-cancer substances. Now, what about, should you just limit food additives? Well, you can if you want, if you're worried about it. I mean, again, there's not a lot of evidence. I personally think that, for example, artificial sweeteners, I think, in my personal opinion, I've asked about this, I think they're safe in small amounts, like what I do. I add an envelope of, I don't use aspartame anymore, I use stevia. Stevia is not an artificial sweetener, it's a natural plant extract. That's your alternative. If you're worried about stuff like aspartame, switch to something like stevia, which is a natural artificial sweetener that does work well to sweeten your coffee, whatever you add it to, and it actually provides independent health benefits that aspartame doesn't have. So that's one way of reducing it. You want to read the labels to see which food additives are on food products. You want to eat, again, minimally processed foods. You want to drink water. And that's about it. I mean, there's a site, the FDA issued a question and answer thing about artificial ingredients, and they talk about, they mention how if you want to know the artificial ingredients on a label, all the ingredients in a food are placed in order of how much is in the food. Though it's the first ingredient on any label, that's what's the greatest amount in the food. And you'll find if you read most food labels, artificial colorings and sweeteners usually are very low on the ingredient list. What that means is that they're in very small amounts. Again, I'm a little wary about artificial coloring because some of them are in a gray area where they are carcinogens in animals. There's no proof that they're in humans, but I would try and minimize the intake of artificial coloring foods. Like, for example, macaroni and cheese has a yellow artificial coloring, which in some studies have shown has kind of carcinogenic effects in animals. No proof that it does in humans. Well, I don't know what else I could say. That's about it. Let me see, what else can I say here? I think that's about it for artificial additives. So if you want more information on nutrition, exercise science, supplements that work, fat loss techniques that work, anti-aging research you can use today, ergogenic aids, hormonal therapy, women's health and fitness, many other topics. I cover more topics than any other digital newsletter. Subscribe today to my Applied Metabolics newsletter, www.appliedmetabolics.com. When you subscribe, I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook group, where each day I post new information on nutrition, medicine, and exercise, and other interesting topics. Also, I have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics website, exclusively for current subscribers only of Applied Metabolics. I don't respond to unsolicited questions. If you're not a subscriber, if you want to have ask me questions, you can do a paid consultation with me, but I don't have time to answer questions to people that are not subscribers. Same goes for these videos. You're welcome to leave comments and suggestions for future videos, but I don't have the time to personally answer the questions. And I guess that's about it. Applied Metabolics, by the way, is 40 to 50 pages, no ads, solid evidence-based information, and it has something that can't be matched by any other digital publication in the world, which is my personal experience of 58 years of training in the gym and study. I've been in the trenches. I know what works. I know what doesn't work. Nobody can come close to matching that. I don't care if they have 70 degrees from Harvard, Yale. They can't match that particular background. And I will tell you what I've learned over the years in my Applied Metabolics newsletter. I'll save you a lot of time and stress from doing things wrong. So subscribe today, www.appliedmetabolics.com. Thank you for listening. Oh, by the way, if you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, Go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. They are great, and they do not contain any food additives, although dog foods do contain food additives, which is, you want to, what I'd suggest there is, again, look at the labels of dog food if you buy it, and see how much artificial coloring and artificial flavoring it contains. If you see a lot of that, don't buy it. Go for the natural food coloring. The natural dog foods that don't contain these food additives, because the number one killer of dogs is not cardiovascular disease, it's cancer. And any chance that these additives could cause cancer in dogs is not worth it. Take care. Thank you for listening.